with that, and without further ado, I'm really, really excited for another big highlight, another product that many of us have grown to love. I mean, crowdfunding has like exploded and been really, really massive. So I'm super excited to welcome Slava Rubin, a seasoned entrepreneur and innovator in the fintech space for nearly 20 years. He has founded and built a venture fund and an equity crowdfunding platform that many of you know and use, Indiegogo. He has been like the CEO for over 10 years, and he grew Indiegogo from inception to over 500,000 campaigns and more than $1 billion distributed to all the people on the platform that use that platform. And I think we're going to talk about something that many of you that are looking at being an entrepreneur probably wonder about. And he'll share really his insights on how to overcome rejection as an entrepreneur. Because while the journey when you start sounds like really, really cool, there's a lot of ups and downs. And he has like masterfully managed through that. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Slava Rubin. So please all give him a super warm welcome for the next fireside chat, the next keynote of the morning. Thank you, Slava, for joining us here. Thank you so much once more to joining us in beautiful Cluj-Napoca. So yeah, would love to learn like how it all started with Indiegogo and like how your journey came about like to this like massive scale.
First, I want to say thank you to everybody, Vlad and the whole team for having me. This is years in the making. So finally got out here, so very excited to be here. So good morning, everybody. So how did it all get started? You just go back to 2006, which is a very long time ago. I'm probably a little bit older than most of you. And my two co-founders and I, we all had a mutual frustration of trying to raise money using the internet. And YouTube was brand new. PayPal was actually not used so much. YouTube wasn't even owned by Google yet, if you can remember that. And I was trying to raise money for cancer research because my dad died of cancer when I was a kid, and I thought to myself, I didn't want to just throw another event where I had people drink at a bar and listen to music and just give money. I was hoping to try to use the internet and try to use technology. My other two co-founders had their own challenges with trying to raise money, and we just said, the internet's really interesting. YouTube is democratizing how people get access to content. Anybody can put up anything they want. Some things get really big, some things stay small. Why not try to do that for money? It's never existed before, so we created it and launched it in January 2008. The word crowdfunding did not exist. Now people know the word crowdfunding. We actually used, the first phrase was a social marketplace. That was our first terminology. Somebody came out with the word crowdfunding. We're like, oh, that's a pretty good term. Well, let's just go with that. And I guess the rest is history. Now we've distributed billions of dollars around the world to every country in the world. We get tens of millions of people that come to Indiegogo every month. And it's great. We've empowered many, many people to do the things that they love and have created tons of jobs all across the entire world.
So how was the reception when you initially launched, right? Because now it's very obvious, right? Like now nobody questions that it's a great idea. So how was it initially when you launched?
The exact opposite. So, I'm now an investor. I was not an investor back then. And I think there's like a really strong correlation between like how much people think your idea is a good idea when you start with how not good of an idea it is. Meaning, the worse of an idea somebody thinks you have, the bigger the idea potentially you have. Because if everybody understands exactly what you're saying, it's obviously not so unique. It's not so special. Said a different way, when Howard Schultz, in America said, I'm going to create a coffee company by just having better coffee and destroy the entire world in terms of coffee, everybody thought he was a fool. Who needs another coffee company? And now you have some incredible coffee company. And when we came out with Indiegogo, I must admit there was basically not a human who said it was a good idea. Everybody said, like, you're going to right away get fraud. Everybody's going to take the money away. No one's going to use the internet to actually share money. Who's going to give money to somebody else without getting money back or profit or getting a shirt or something? And we just thought, if YouTube can do it, this is just like the same idea, but just with money. It's kind of similar but different. And yeah, we launched in 2008. If you can remember the fall of 2008, it was a very bad market. The economy crashed. We launched in Q1, and we had this brilliant plan, which was in Q1 we were going to launch our product, and in Q2 we were going to get case studies where it was going to be clients, it was going to work. Then we were going to put out a press release in Q3 because investors love the press and media and to see that you're fancy. So we were going to put out a press release in Q3 and use that as momentum to raise money from the VCs. And it kind of went okay until Q3, the market crashed, and yeah, everybody just said no. And we got rejected left and right. We got rejected for nearly 3 years. 3 years. The only money we used was the 3 co-founders' money. The only people that worked at the company were the 3 co-founders. We paid ourselves $0. We actually paid to work at our company. Like, we spent money every month to work at our company. And yeah, it was just a lot of passion and determination. Realistically, one of the obvious questions that people always ask is like, why did you keep on doing it? And there's 2 parts to that answer. One is, a lot of entrepreneurs these days, they're trained to talk in terms of cash and runway. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, in terms of how much cash you have in the bank and how many months of runway you have left to try to execute. Well, we had no cash, so we had no runway. Said a different way. Like, you're trained to look at your car to see how much gas you have left before you need to go back to the gas station, or before you have to go back to the electric, to charge up. Imagine the car was just always empty, but you kind of just kept on going. So you don't have to worry about refilling because it's already empty. You can't go lower. So we had no runway. We just kept on working. And we got rejected. And an amazing thing happened, which we got rejected by 93 VCs in a row. 93. And we basically just decided VCs aren't going to give us money. It's just not going to happen. So the only way that we can still exist is we need to make money. Imagine that.
Crazy idea. So
we're we really don't have any money left ourselves. We're already just eating rice, so we just need to make money. And if we can make money, then we can try to grow. And if we grow, we can maybe hire somebody and then grow some more. And before you knew it, the revenue was going up. The expenses were obviously not going up because there was no more expenses to be had. And we were basically profitable. And then we finally went to our 94th VC, and they had already rejected us twice. And we said, hey, are you interested to potentially invest? And he's like, your numbers are ridiculous. These metrics are incredible. It's all up and to the right. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to invest. See, now here's the key learning, which is this guy turned me down already twice. I really liked him, though. That's why I went back to him. And lots of other people turned me down. But see, when I didn't have the data, they had opinions. Now, whose opinion is your favorite opinion?
Your own.
Your own. So when it's the VC with their opinion, or me with my opinion about what's going to happen in this industry, they like their opinion better. But then when it's their opinion and my data, their opinion doesn't matter because I have facts and they have opinions. Jeff Bezos is very famous for, in his executive meetings, even today, well, not anymore, I guess, since he now just hangs out on yachts, but he's famous for saying, if we're going to move forward with the initiative you just proposed, you better bring me some data, because if we're going to choose whose opinion we like the most, I'm going with mine. Meaning Jeff Bezos is very famous for saying that. So you could only prove that you were going to move forward with an initiative with data. And that was it. Like from there, people got in love with the data, in love with the metrics, and before you know it, we became a rocket ship. So we went from 93 rejections in a row, nonstop rejection, everybody calling us an idiot, everybody saying fraud, and everybody saying competition and blah, 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 to all of a sudden, literally, raised $1.5 million in a terrible market. 14 months later, raised $15 million. And then a year and a half later, raised $52.5 million from like John Doerr, the most famous VCs. I was in all partner meetings. That's like the big meeting, you know, the all partner meeting, like when you get the money or not from the investment committee. I was in an all partner meeting on the same day, in one day, with Khosla Ventures, Sequoia Capital, and Kleiner Perkins. Forget the other partner meetings that I had. I'm talking about in one day, I had all partner meetings, like every single one of those investors in one day, and like all giving term sheets. And I'm like, yeah, I get to choose now. Yeah, this is kind of fun. So anyway, point is everybody thought Indiegogo was an absolute ridiculous idea. And if you fast forward, you used a very good word, which I think is like obvious. And the ideas that tend to, in my opinion now, looking back for 20 years and talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, mentoring a lot of entrepreneurs, investing in a lot of companies, it is the ideas that feel kind of like they should be inevitable. But for some reason they're not. But when you have the idea, it's like, this should exist. It might sound stupid to others in terms of the implementation and the execution, but the concept, like it's inevitable, like that should exist. How to accomplish that is very hard. But it's those ideas that often you fast forward like 10 years, they do exist. It's just a matter of who's going to accomplish that and who's going to do all the hard work to make that happen. So don't always just because like, oh, that's an obvious idea, it hasn't been done yet, I shouldn't do it. Like, that's what you should work on for years.
I love that, and I loved also the remark you made earlier that if like everybody thinks already it's like clear, then it's probably like too late to like go into that space.
Yeah, said another way is if you're about to tell me that you have some like AI idea to like write better content or something, like, yeah, great. I mean, isn't that what everybody's talking about right now? So isn't there like a million people with the same idea? So yeah, sure, it's a fine idea, but when you then get into what's called a knife fight, it's like, obviously it's gonna happen, but now you have to like stab the other 990,000 people from doing it, you know, and like, a knife fight is another way of saying CAC, you know, customer acquisition costs, right, retention, like how much do you keep your customer? These are just knife fights. This is like, there's Coca-Cola over here or Pepsi over here. They just have to keep on spending money at the Super Bowl to have you buy it, right? As opposed to, let's call it Facebook, right? When it came out, it was massively innovative and created like network effect, which then just like destroyed their competition because they couldn't even compete. They didn't have to create a knife fight. They were like, we have a great product. So, yeah.
So going back to the point when you decided to make money, which I think in the current economic environment, a lot of people can take a lesson from as well.
Absolutely.
But what was it that like when you like, was it a pivot in the product or what was it that like led you to this hockey stick growth? What was like the key changes or learnings that you had to create a product that made money and growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were trying to already back then take a playbook from Amazon. So I don't know if you recall, but when Amazon started, it was books only. And they didn't have everything else, and they didn't have Prime. It was literally just books. And then a couple of years later, they started expanding into music and other stuff, and obviously they then do lots of other things. They definitely didn't have AWS yet. You know, it's a whole different business. And for Indiegogo, our vision was to be able to raise capital for any idea. But we thought anything was too big of an idea. So we started with movies only. Not because we really specifically wanted to be in the movie business, but we just thought movies was interesting. We knew that we wanted to be compelling with videos, and we thought filmmakers would already make good videos. We wanted to have interesting perks or rewards. We thought filmmakers could have interesting rewards, like hang out with the cast or get your name in the credits, or like all these things that could already be interesting. And we thought you need to have good writing to market your idea. So we thought the people that were writing, movies and associated with movies can maybe write interesting copy, good words, like as part of their campaign. So we started with movies only. And keep in mind that from the beginning, we wanted to do everything. But we started with movies only. So we go to the VCs, and probably like 30 of the 93 VCs are like, oh, I'm sorry, Slava, but we don't invest in films. We only invest in software companies. I'm like, sir, Indiegogo is software. We don't make any movies. They're like, it's all movies. I'm like, yes, it's a platform where people use it. The people using it make movies. They're like, yeah, we don't fund movies, I'm sorry. Okay, so that was like a third of the no's. So then appreciate what I'm saying here is, I would tell them, why is this a movie site? They're like, well, you fund movies. And I'm like, sir, you understand that it's like one field in a form that they fill out, but they just don't actually choose film because they don't have a choice. Imagine I created choices there. And you could have like a drop down of like 20 different things. They're like, yeah, I don't understand. I'm like, aren't you investing into the future, like trying to predict like the next great companies 10 years from now? I'm like, Amazon didn't have like music and like all these other choices. They just had books. Then they just expanded. They're like, yeah, we don't invest in movies. I'm like, okay, this is going well. So that was a long way of answering your question here, which is we did 3 things to change from, let's call it, regular V0 company to V1. And the reason we switched to V1 is because the co-founders, we had to have this heart-to-heart in the summer of 2009, which is very dark days. The market crashes in the fall of 2008. The summer of 2009, very dark. It's like very tough market, way harder than it is in this cycle right now. And we're just kind of like, my engineering lead, he's like, I think I'm gonna start taking consulting jobs. I think I'm gonna start making some money on the side because I need some cash, and people still want to pay me for my engineering capabilities. So I'm just gonna, start, taking some side gigs. And we had to have a heart-to-heart, and I said, listen, professional athletes, whether it's Messi, moving to America, or whether it's Michael Jordan or whatever, people don't use the word retire until they're ready to retire. Do you understand what I'm saying? That word doesn't actually come out of their mouth until they're ready to retire soon-ish. People don't act, so my point to my co-founder Eric is we don't start talking about quitting until we're ready to quit. And working part-time on some other stuff is another way of saying, like, I think I'm gonna start thinking about quitting. I'm like, so let's quit or let's not quit. It's one or the other. And we're like, okay, let's not quit, no side jobs, no extra money, we're just gonna do this, but this is like our last battle. We're either like going to succeed and we're gonna continue, or we're gonna fail and we're gonna quit. No more like maybe yes, maybe no. So as part of the last battle, we were like, okay, what's the perfect Indiegogo? Like, what can we still accomplish? And there were a couple things, which was, one, we were religious, incorrectly, but religious that our product, the software, had to do all the selling. No humans were allowed to sell anything. The product had to do it all, the software and the words. So my co-founders and I, Danae and I, we said, you know what? Let's start helping. Let's go to places. Let's start, talking to people. Let's start selling. Let's do customer support beyond just like the, FAQs that will respond automated to the questions. Let's actually try to be humans trying to help. So that was one. Two, let's change from film only and add everything as an option to drop down. And number three, there were some design things from competition that was doing things interesting. Let's just, commoditize that, take that off the plate. Don't let anybody say that anybody else's site has any better design or whatever. Just take that off the plate and just commoditize that, meaning have it very similar, anything that was better. We did those 3 things. It took about a month to do all that. And I'm not even joking, the open up to everything and the sales stuff, it just like started going straight up. Because now instead of only people in the film industry talking about Indiegogo, now every industry was using Indiegogo. And so that was the huge change, and it took effort, and that's what happened.
As a side question, as you're saying that like everybody who invests or backs an Indiegogo project gets a perk. What was the favorite perk that you ever got by backing a project?
I mean, it's kind of like asking which of my 3 children. I have 3 children now. Which one's my favorite? I love all my campaigns. I love all the perks. You know, I have like a cool e-bike that I've been riding for years that I got off of Indiegogo. But probably the coolest campaign ever was, it was actually the first ever crowdfunded baby campaign. So it was a woman who couldn't get pregnant, and they were very young, in their 20s, and insurance in America didn't want to cover them to try to have IVF, in vitro fertilization, because they were so statistically unlikely to get pregnant that the insurance company didn't want to back it. So this woman like was very open and put all the information on Indiegogo, and they got funded. And she always had this really interesting saying, because I got to know her, and she's like, all I wanted was the opportunity to fail, not to succeed. No one even gave me a chance to fail, right? I just want a chance to fail, which I thought was great. And so anyway, they raised the money, and they actually got pregnant, and now they have a child, and it's amazing. And that becomes a New York Times article, and now you probably know, you yourself probably know people, or you've funded these campaigns, or you've done this yourself. Now this is like, so like boring. That's like, but that was the first campaign ever of anything like that. And that happened on Indiegogo like, I don't know, 13 years ago or something. So the fact that it just like changed the entire industries is super fun.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of people's lives it has impacted is massive, right? Like, so I've backed myself many different like campaigns and things like that. It's really like remarkable the impact you've created on society.
Yeah, I mean, one of our favorite words, my favorite words, the company's favorite words is empower. You know, EMPOWER, empower. And you know, if you give people the opportunity to feel like they can accomplish something, it's really like a gift. So whatever tricks you can do that, whether it's like your mom or dad, your coach, your mentor, some platform, you know, I always like to say that we kind of fool our customers. And I say that in a positive way. I mean like the campaigners. Like to me, I'm simplifying this, but like Indiegogo is like a placebo pill. Meaning there's like the real pill that like really lowers your blood pressure, or there's the placebo pill which makes you think that you took the real pill, so then you get less stressed, so then you lower your blood pressure. Like, all these people that accomplish great things on Indiegogo, like, they're the ones that accomplished it. We didn't accomplish it. They accomplished it. But yet, like, they weren't going to do it often if they didn't use Indiegogo. So it's kind of like with Indiegogo, we're that placebo pill that makes them think, like, oh, I could do this too. And then they do it. And they're like, oh, Indiegogo is great. Like, I did it because Indiegogo, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's not true. Like, they did it because they're great, and they just happen to use our platform. And that's one of the coolest things about Indiegogo, is it empowered so many people around the world to do all these great things.
I love the humility, but I do think you have a significant contribution to build the platform to make that happen. So, but I appreciate the mindset. So maybe as a last theme before we're wrapping up, right? Like I think there's many people in the audience who are thinking about starting their company. I'm not sure after your story if they're more excited or more scared, so I'm not quite sure what the effect of this is. But what is it like that you would like advise people? Like, how do they figure out if it's a good moment for them to start something? What are the attributes you would look for, both as an advice to like young entrepreneurs, but as well as an investor now, of course. Like, what do you look for?
You know, I'm now a parent, and I've created multiple companies. People ask me, when's a good time to start a company? When's a good time to have a child? The answer for both is exactly the same, and they're very clearly the same. It's never a good time to do either. Ever. It's always a lot of pain, and it always turns out to be awesome, you know, even if it's terrible. What I mean is the learning is great no matter what. So many people want the opportunity to fail. Do you understand that saying? If you don't try, you will not fail. But then that means you will not succeed, right? So the time to do anything is now. And now can be whenever. It won't ever get better. It won't get worse. It'll only be the moment of when you want to do it. And why should you do it is if you're passionate. If you're passionate like the guy before me here, You need to want to do what you're doing. If you're doing it for the fame, for the money, for the whatever, that's all stupid because there's way better ways to do all of those things than to be an entrepreneur. But if you're compelled to be an entrepreneur because you think you could accomplish something great with yourself, co-founders, whatever, and try to bring something awesome to the world, like, you should do it. And chances are it will suck for like a week or a decade straight. But if you're passionate, you'll ride through that roller coaster. And then on the other side of that, like, as you put one foot in front of the next, you might run a marathon. Before you know it, you've created some amazing company. That's literally how it works. Like, you just have to be persistent, be passionate, be willing to grind. And when it comes to, like, and if you fail, in my opinion, failure is awesome. Honestly. It means you've learned something. It means that tomorrow's company, I love investing into entrepreneurs that have failed before. I'm telling you this, like, truthfully as an investor. It's actually a plus sign for me. Like, if you've actually tried to create a company and you've learned along the way, like, it's amazing. It's way better than somebody who hasn't created anything. Because somebody who hasn't created anything, like, has very little experience. And then the other thing is, don't just, like, use opinions to explain things to people. Back to my previous points in the beginning of this conversation. Use momentum, use traction, use proof points. Like, show evidence. Whether it's like you created the product, you have customer traction, you have revenue, you have retention, whatever it is. But just don't try to win over people who are naysayers to you by, like, talking more. Like, it's way too easy to create stuff. I mean, my God, with OpenAI, you could practically have software create stuff for you. Nevertheless, you have to do it yourself. So you have to really get as quickly as possible to facts to argue with other people's opinions.
I love that. And I hope people are now not only scared about creating companies, but also getting babies. So I'm not quite sure on the effect of that. But the good thing is lots of people here started families, so it should be easy if you've survived that. And like a kid, you commit for at least 18 years. A company might be like 5 to 10 years.
I'm almost at 18 years with Indiegogo. But yeah, I mean, I actually think that both are really challenging. And as probably most of your parents will say or whatever, like, having children is amazing. It's not easy. Having, like, companies is amazing. It's not easy. Like, it's just how it is. And, the other thing is very similar to, like, children. Like, no one will ever, kind of love your child really as much or go as out of the way for your child as you will, because it's kind of like an ROI negative concept. You're like, oh, I'll just keep on investing all this effort into this human, and I'm not really getting much back. Just keep on, keep on, keep on. But that's like that parent connection that does that. Similarly, like, that founder love and passion is what is necessary to go into your company, because, like, other people who aren't willing to be the founder of your company, like, they're not going to love your company or do, like, the crazy things to accomplish what's necessary to get it to the other side. So that founder mentality and being passionate is, like, super important.
Okay, I love that. With that, thank you so much, Slava. You're going to be on QA after this.
Yep.
So please ask him. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, and people regularly ask me for, like, my email or whatever. You don't need, I could tell it to you. It's Slava@Humbition. That's my, like, venture fund. So feel free to email me. I always respond. It's usually very short, and it doesn't usually say yes. But happy to be in touch.